if you've ever tried to explain how a sample library works to one of your friends, and you just get a blank stare in response, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hi, I'm Ryan Thomas with 8Dio, and this video is the walkthrough for the new update to Majestica, which is a 200-piece epic orchestra featuring a 100-piece string section, a 60-piece brass section, a 60-piece woodwind section, and a 20-piece orchestral percussion section. Now, this update features a modernized user interface, which is actually very similar to the new Anthology and Century Series Instruments interface, if you are familiar with those. And they've really streamlined quite a few aspects of the library, and I love the new interface. And they've also added a Polyphonic Legato articulation in the strings, as well as a Time Machine Pro version of the arcs, which is really cool because it allows you to actually have movement within an arc. You can actually change notes halfway through an arc, and the note that you switch to is going to end at the same time as the first notes that you played. If that's a little bit confusing, I will show you exactly what I mean a little bit later on in the video, but it is just a really, really cool added layer of functionality to the arcs, and it just makes them infinitely more playable and usable. It's a really cool library. I've actually owned this for a number of years. I bought it when it was pretty new, and it's in all of my templates. It's just a really cool library. It's very versatile. And what we're going to do is kind of, of course we're going to cover the updates, but we're also going to just rediscover the library. And I'm going to take you through the strings, the brass, the woodwinds, and the percussion individually. And then I'm just going to show you a few little mini compositions that combine the entire orchestra so that you can hear how they work together. So we're going to start off by reviewing the interface and then just dive into the instruments. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, when you first pull up the new Majestica, you'll have your choice of these 6 main patches here. And these are just going to pull up empty key switch patches. I'll show you those in just a minute, but let's check out the individual articulations. So obviously, if you know that you only want to use one or just a couple articulations, then you can just queue up any of these individual articulations here. Now, the auxiliary patches is where you will find the new content, including the Time Machine Pro arcs, as well as in the strings, the Polyphonic Legato. And I'll show you a little bit later on how these new articulations work. So when you pull up one of these 6 main patches here, it's just going to give you a mostly empty articulation set, and you can populate this however you want to build your own custom key switch. So I'm just going to choose the medium legato here. And if you are familiar with a lot of the newer orchestral instruments by 8Dio, then you will be familiar with this interface. And the interface includes everything that you need and really nothing that you don't. So it's got a basic built-in reverb control panel here. Obviously, you can turn off the reverb if you want to, like if you've got your own reverb that you want to use. You've got the microphone mix panel, the EQ panel, and all of your instrument controls are just right here. I do like to link the expression and the dynamics. It just makes it a little bit more emotive. And that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's start checking out the instruments, and we'll start with the strings. And these just have a really beautiful silky sound that has a really nice airy top end that allows it to cut through a mix without sounding harsh at all. These really sit very well in a mix. So we're going to start off with the fast spiccato and then just work our way down. So those are nice and punchy, really nimble, and again, they just have this really fat presence to them. Now, the spiccato is going to be just a little bit slower, and it's going to allow you to actually play some sort of maybe fast marcato run type stuff. So this is the spiccato. And this is the marcato. just a massive sound, and this is the Collegno. And then I've just got a couple examples here that I've gone ahead and mocked up because for most of these I couldn't play them live. So this one here is going to feature the spiccato fast. And this one also features the fast spiccato. Now this example here is going to have some key switching, so just be looking for that in this instance of contact if you're wondering what articulation is playing. So there's some really cool techniques that you can use with this library. You can simulate runs actually with the spiccato as well as the spiccato fast if you just finesse the velocity a little bit. So you can see right here where we've got these really light velocities going into the actual note here at measure 30, and that sounds like this. Again. So again, there are some really fun techniques that you can use with the library to create some really convincing orchestral effects. Okay, let's move on to the long articulations. And we're not going to demo all of the articulations because I feel like the video would just kind of drag on, and you really don't need to kind of get what the library is all about. So this is the strong legato. So it sounds really nice, and you will hear some of the other legatos in the full orchestra demos a little bit later on. Let's check out the arcs. These are just really beautiful, delicate articulations that 8Dio has kind of become known for. And if you're not familiar with how they work, they essentially sample the orchestra actually playing a swell, and they record that, so it doesn't actually respond to the mod wheel at all, and you get the realism of the orchestra actually producing that swell. And these are also going to respond to the speed parameter, so all the way to the left is going to give you the longest note value, and all the way to the right is going to give you the shorter note value. And I've actually mapped this to one of the sliders on my keyboard, so I have a couple different examples of the arcs here. Let's check them out. It's just such a massive sound, but it's still really delicate. Now these are going to be a little bit shorter because I am turning the speed all the way up. So yeah, just a really cool articulation, really unique. Now let's go ahead and move on to the brass. Now, the brass just has this really gorgeous tone. You get this nice, airy top end, and you don't tend to get a buildup of those fundamental frequencies like around, 300 to 600, like you often get with other brass libraries. It's just nice, it's nice and brassy. So this is the staccatissimo. This is the staccato, so again, a slightly longer release. And this is the marcato. and the marcato muted, which has a really cool character to it. And the savage hits are really cool. You'll hear how those can be used in context a little bit later on. And the savage phrases are also some really cool aleatoric brass. So some really fun stuff to play around with there. And I went ahead and also programmed some demos here to show you some more advanced techniques that I wouldn't be able to play in live. So that's the staccatissimo, and this is the staccato. And this next example here involves some key switching to produce some compound articulations. So if played quickly enough, you get just a little bit of blur between the notes with the staccato and the marcato articulations. So it's not just a shorts patch, you can also use it for faster melodic passages. Let's check out the long brass articulations. And we're not going to go through all of these because you'll hear some of them in the other demos, but I did want to go ahead and show you the power muted and the arcs. So this is the muted. That's just such a cool articulation. Now let's check out the arcs, and you can change the length of the arc, again, using the speed knob. So I'm gonna set it to kind of medium long. Just something nice and simple. And we're gonna make it just a little bit shorter now. Really nice and delicate. Okay, let's check out the woodwinds now, and we're gonna start in the high woodwinds. And these are gonna be your flutes, clarinets, oboes, and piccolos all playing together to just give you this massive sound, but it also sounds nice and delicate when it needs to. So this is the staccatissimo. And this is the marcato. And finally, the double tongue. That's a really fun one. And then I just have this little demo here that switches between a couple different articulations. Really fun stuff. Now for the sustains, let's check out this little demo here that actually combines the shorts along with the sustains articulation. And let's also give a listen to the arcs. These are really beautiful with the high woodwinds. They just sound so magical to me. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the low woodwinds. These are a lot of fun. These are super chunky sounding. And of course, we will start with the shorts. And this is the staccatissimo. And this is the marcato. And these are the double tongues. And the slap notes. There's a lot of fun you can have with those. Okay, let's check out some of these examples here where we are switching between a couple different articulations. So you can get some really cool results by switching between the longer and the shorter of the short articulations. And for the sustains, I just have this example here. So these can also sound really delicate, and I also wanted to show you the arcs. I really love the arcs with the low woodwinds in particular. And let's go ahead and set this to about medium long. And we'll go a little bit shorter with these. I just love those. By the way, 10 points to anyone who can tell me what soundtrack I ripped that off of in the comments. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to the percussion. The percussion is just savage. I absolutely love it. And for the most part, we're just going to be working in the master percussion patch here. But I did just want to make you aware that in the key switch patches, you can pull up individual percussion instruments, and it's just going to give you some additional tunings or options. Like, for example, with the timpani, your lowest note is going to be this, and your highest note is going to be this. Whereas in the master patch, the lowest note is going to be this, and the highest note is going to be this. So you just get a few additional options with the dedicated percussion articulations, but I'm going to be working mostly in the master percussion patch just for the purposes of this video. And these are the grand casas. These are the toms. This is the timpani. These are the snares. These are the tambourines. And a little shake. And these are the anvils. And these are the cymbal pairs, the cymbal crashes, the gongs, these are the sticks and the claps, so those are all of the hits. Now let's check out some of the rolls, and these are going to respond to the mod wheel, I really love the gong sustain. So yeah, some really fun stuff in there. And you've also got crescendos recorded in most of the percussion instruments as well, but there are just so many, I don't want to take the time to go through them, and you'll hear a few a little bit later on in some of the demos. Okay, let's check out this little mini demo of the percussion, and this covers all of the percussion instruments in the library. It's just got such a huge sound. It's so epic, and you really get a sense of the space in which the percussion were recorded. Okay, and now you've heard all of the orchestral sections by themselves. Let's hear how they work together. And this first example is pretty by the numbers, but you'll hear some brass arcs in there and a nice little ostinato pattern in the strings, as well as the woodwinds, with the percussion underneath just kind of driving it along. I think this would sound really nice with like a pulsing synth, just to round it out a little bit, but in any case, here it is. Nothing too crazy going on there, but I did want to go ahead and show you how well the strings and the high woodwinds layer with each other. So I'm going to have the woodwinds muted for the first part of this, and then I'm going to solo them along with the strings so that you can hear what they add. And now with the woodwinds. Yeah, so they just add a really cool texture there, and they work really well with the high strings. Okay, let's move on to the next example, which is considerably more technical. There's a lot of movement, a lot of key switching, so let me go ahead and set up these contact instances here. And this one was a lot of fun to write. It's kind of piratey, kind of action adventure. Let's give it a listen. So that one was mostly done using short patches, obviously some sustains in there, but you can hear what this library can do. Okay, let's move on to this next example. And this one is going to make pretty extensive use of the effects articulations. It's got some of the stabs and some of the phrases in the woodwinds, so let's check it out. And those brass sustains and the string sustains just sound so cool to me in measure 208 here. You just get this huge wall of sound, and they just blend together really well. And we have one other example here that is actually going to use the polyphonic legato. So let's move on to that one. And this one is also going to show you the softer side of Majestica. I just love how warm those basses and the celli are when they come in halfway through the piece. Speaking of polyphonic legato, let's actually take a closer look at that because that is one of the new features of the update. So, of course, this allows you to play multiple notes and have legato transitions between them. So you can be playing a chord, and you can transition from one chord to another with true legato transitions between all the notes. So let's check that out real quick. And as you can see, the scripting is intelligent enough to tell when you want to hold a note and when you want to actually trigger the legato transition between notes. And finally, let's check out the Time Machine Pro arcs. And these are just so cool. Again, they allow you to change notes in the middle of an arc without starting a new note. So they're all going to end at the same time. So for example, if I start this C right now, and I start this G now, the G is going to end with the C. So here's a few more examples of that. Just super cool. And I have kind of a monster patch here that I made that's got the entire orchestra playing these same kinds of arcs. So again, that's everything. That's brass, woodwinds, as well as the strings. Okay, well, I think that is going to do it for the video. I hope that you had as much fun watching it as I had making it. This library is just a joy to work with. There's really nothing like it. I find that it works really well on its own, of course, but it's also brilliant when you use it to layer with other individual sections. So for example, if I've got like a violin ostinato where I've got my century violin section playing a line and it's just not thick enough, then you throw some Majestica over top of it and it really just adds body to it without muddying up the mix. So it's a super versatile library, and the percussion is also just absolutely brutal, and you just get this really huge, big sense of space. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video and hope that you got something useful out of it, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.